I'm back to using square bales. Thank God, I love square bales compared to the other. I want to explain some things that I know, tricks that you might not know about unloading and stacking or ranking square bales. Here are bales that are already ranked. Now there's a cut edge. This is the cut edge. You don't see the folded edge because it's underneath. And one of the rules is you stack them with the cut edge up. Now, you'd also be tempted to lay them the way they're on the truck. Here, the way they're on the pickup, you see they're not on edge at all. This is the folded edge, incidentally. That's a stacked or cut edge. This is a cut edge. This is a cut edge. And you do that because the hay mow needs to draw. It needs to breathe. The air needs to go up through. And it does it a little bit better this way. Plus, it's easier to walk on this way. But if you laid the bales flat like that, it wouldn't. Everything would be blocked. Water would not go down through it. Air would not come up. And what you do with every rank, you cross the bales. Like the long ways are going this way. They're over ones that are going this way. Now, another thing, it's very tempting to build right to the wall. You should not do that, because if you build right to the wall, you're going to want to use that wall to hold your stack, and you don't want that. The stack has to hold itself. You eventually step each rank in just a little bit, so they're not exactly plumb. So I'm going to get at this, and maybe I'll start. This is loose hay from last year. And it's kind of in the way, but I don't want to just feed it out and waste it, so I'm working around it. Here, I just tumbled off the back ones. I just pulled them down without going up on the truck. And of course, they're laying that way. When you pick a bale up, one hand would be here, one hand would be here. And if you've got one loose twine, you leave it alone and you grab the tight one. And you sink your knee into it sometimes, set it up on edge, and sink your knee into it to straighten it up. I went up on the truck and pickup and threw a bunch off. And here's a bale that's an example. If I were to pick it up by this string, it might very likely break loose. There's the tight one. I'm only going to use that string. I'll pick it up, I'll put it on its edge, I'll drive my knee into the top, and it shouldn't break open. Another thing I certainly want to mention is spontaneous combustion. You don't want to put wet hay in a barn. This hay is, to my measure, a little bit tough, which is the word you use when it's not bone dry. But that's fine. If it were wet, or if it will start to ferment, and you can burn the barn down. Spontaneous combustion. It doesn't even need a spark. It'll get so hot that it'll catch fire. Now, farmers know about that. It's one of the reasons you stack it this way. So any kind of a heat is not being held down in there, but is allowed to come up through. If you have hay that's questionable, it seems like maybe it's a little bit wet. One of the things people will do, I've done, is you stack the bales with gaps in between them to better let that heat come out. That's not necessary with this hay. I can pack it tight. Now I've lowered the tailgate. It was stuck. Normally I would have lowered it right away, but it was jammed. And notice that there's no strap. There's that strap. But this one broke off and is gone. I keep forgetting to replace it. It really should be there, but that's one of the things on farms, especially farms that don't have lots of money, which is most. There's often stuff that's just so questionable. But anyway, what I wanted to show you is to keep this hay on the pickup. I didn't tie it down or anything. The first course I put on edge to get the height up even with the, what do you call it, the fender wall, the whatever. Then the second, and that was just two. Now here I put one, another, and then one long ways to get around the fender wells. Now the next course, in the middle, there's one going long ways. Now they're laying flat. One, and you can let them hang out a little bit. The next course, I went down to 2. They have to kind of knit themselves together to stay in place. I don't know if with this light you can see this or not. And then on the top, that top one kind of knits everything together. And if it's good, well done and you don't, well, if it's not well baled, then a lot of times you'll have to tie it down, or if you're going out in the highway. Now I'm up on the pickup, and you see this top bale, it's resting on 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, right in the middle. It's holding them all in place. But I wanted to show you that. But the other thing, I'm tossing the bales over there, and I'm not strong enough, and never was, to simply throw them. My wife has a brother who in his youth could do that. He could throw them as far as you want. It's better to just roll them. I'm going to grab them by 2 strings and put it up against my knee, and I'm going to toss it in such a way that it'll hit the edge and roll once or twice, except maybe because that loose hay there will stop. We'll see how I do. I didn't do that well. It did roll once, but then it hit the corner and stopped. And anyway, it wasn't going to go far because of that loose hay. Now I'll roll a bunch more. Now that one over there rolled there. I tossed that one in such a way that it hit these and rolled once or twice. And you know, if you do that, it's not only to help yourself out. You usually have 2 people. One is stacking, or mowing they call it, and the other is putting it on a hay elevator or unloading a wagon. Sometimes 3, 4 people will be there. And it's easier for them if they don't have to be trying to walk around on the hay to go get the bale. You want to try to deliver it right to where they are. I'm going to get one more pickup truck load this week, maybe more later, but I'm going to get one more. And before I bring it, I think I'm going to move all that loose hay over there. Now, notice the refrigerator. That was given to Gabriel, the ex-homeless. He's homed again. I'll tell you more about him later. He's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And this is stuff of his that's drying out. One of the things that happens with barns is so often people say, hey, you've got an empty barn, can I store stuff there? Well, when Gabriel came here, I said, hey, you can have this space back here to store your stuff, because by that time he already had a bunch. But more's going on here. This area over there is to be my classroom. That area up there is to be the library. There's going to be a furnace underneath here, a small fireplace right there, a wood burning stove there. So just about all this stuff is here for my reasons, because I want it. All right, back. Oh no, one other thing I'll tell you. When I go up in a pickup, I'm going to throw those bales off down here, because I think I can come in. I think I will come in another row. That'll partly keep me from driving over on the barn and off these planks. That last thing I said probably didn't make any sense. This is the barn floor right here. Where I'm putting the hay is the mow, the hay mow. It's always, or almost always, framed much lighter. The barn floor has to be heavy enough to carry horses, loaded wagons, etc. There was something else. And you know, when I came here, this barn bridge, that's what I added there, was not there. The hay was brought up by what's called let's say a hay hook. I took it down, but there's a rail up there at the top still, and there's a trolley, or kind of a trolley, that would carry the hay back. Some of you, Wayne Frost, for example, will certainly remember this. And it was lifted up out of a wagon outside by horsepower or tractor, drawn up. Something would trip, and then it would carry back. You'd trip it with another rope, and it would drop the hay where you wanted. And you could also pick up about 6 bales when it went over to square bales. Here you can see how I stacked this on the pickup. There's 4 bales that are on edge, 1 here in the middle, now laying, not on edge, 1 hanging out the side, 1 hanging out the side, and the next course would be 1 here, 1 here, and the third course would be 1 in the middle.